And joining us now is Aaron David Miller. He is a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. He's also been an advisor to a lot of secretaries of state. Aaron, we've seen attacks and we've seen counterattacks against the Houthis before. Does this one seem any different?
You know, it's a tough problem, Gotti. They're deeply embedded. Yemen's not very close. They're inured to war as a consequence of years of conflict with the Saudis and Saudi airstrikes, U.S.-enabled Saudi airstrikes, I might add. The difference here, I think, is this administration has decided to target leadership. That may or may not work. It's just, military force in dealing with the Houthis, at least directly, is a limited tool. The administration has also done something, the president, that the previous administration has not done. It's basically threatened that if the Iranians don't find a way to rein in their clients, and yes, Iran is very supportive of intelligence, logistics, training, but the Houthis fashion themselves to a certain degree an independent entity. The president has basically said, if you don't rein the Houthis in, then we're going to consider any Houthi attack basically an attack from Iran. Now, that's a rhetorically interesting high-wire act here, because if the attacks don't stop, and I doubt I think they will continue, the president's going to face a moment of a put up or shut up moment, and I think that's going to be quite intriguing to see how that plays out.
Oh, I mean, you have my curiosity piqued. How do you think that's going to play out?
Well, at the same time, the president signs an executive order last month, which is essentially, and he signs it reluctantly, and saying he doesn't want a conflict with Iran. He'd like to find a deal. So you've got two tracks here. You've got the president who wants to see a deal rather than a major regional war. Remember, this is the president that stops wars, not enters them. But he doesn't want to see Iran cross the nuclear threshold on his watch, which, frankly, would be very damaging to American national interests, and for a president with the ego the size of Donald Trump, it's also going to be a vanity exercise. So the reality is, I think he's trying to use pressure to moderate it and modulate it to see whether or not he can get the Iranians into a negotiation. It doesn't really deal, however, with the Houthi problem. And 4 years of Joe Biden, I would argue it's time for the United States to get tougher, but we also have to be smarter, and the test is going to come. Is he going to strike Iranian assets, either Iranian ships in the Persian Gulf or a direct strike against Iranian territory? And as the Israelis have found out, that can be effective, but it doesn't completely answer the mail.
Yeah, and I mean, there's first strikes and then there's the first strike of a presidency, right? And when it comes to Donald Trump, without this spilling into a greater conflict, like, what do you think an actual first strike is going to look like? Is he going to go for precision, or is he going to go for shock and awe if that line is crossed?
Well, if you're talking about a U.S. strike against Iranian assets, I think that if it's Houthi-related, I think they will start relatively small up the escalatory ladder. I don't think the president, at least at this stage, wants to attack Iranian nuclear sites. And he also, I think, does not want to attack Iranian oil exporting sites as well. So we're going to have to wait to see how the Houthis decide to play this. Remember, you also have a lot of civilian casualties. There's no telling whether Houthi reports about the deaths of women and children are accurate or not. But if, in fact, the U.S. has struck in Sana'a at Houthi targets, leadership targets, then it's certainly possible that innocent civilians have been killed. So it's a story to watch, Gotti, and I suspect it isn't going to have a happy or Hollywood ending.
No, it's precarious all around. Aaron David Miller, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.